Imagine it's 2011 and you're getting ready to attend a One Direction concert. You are shaking with excitement. You throw your hair up into a messy bun, you put on the peplum top, and over it a green army jacket. You want to be subtle. You don't want to make it obvious that you're this big super fan who knows everything about them. I mean, what would you have to talk about on your first date after the concert, right? So the only merch that you decide to wear are 5 wristbands, and I think we all know what they say. Amazing, fabulous, brilliant, phenomenal, and of course, extraordinary. You're all set, ready to go. You're waiting in your seats at the concert. The lights turn on. The room is buzzing. People are screaming. You don't know where to look, what to do. Your body's just pumping with all this adrenaline. And then you see them. You're having the time of your life, singing along to every single lyric. You even know all the small breaths and pauses that the boys make. And then you notice that one of them is looking in your direction. It's, of course, the beautiful green-eyed boy with his mop of curly hair. He was looking at me, wasn't he? You think? He had to be looking at me. There was no way. Our eyes definitely connected. Then it's the end of the concert. Everyone is cheering. The room is deafening. You know that you're not going to be able to hear anything tomorrow or even be able to talk, but you don't care. Harry comes over to your side of the stage. He's waving. He's blowing kisses. He's saying thank you. And he looks your way one more time. You zoom in on his eyes and you realize he's not actually looking at you. I mean, it certainly seemed that way, but I guess it was just the excitement of the concert. He's actually looking slightly to your left and behind. So you turn around wondering, is that even possible? There's no way. You turn, and it's confirmed. The person that he was looking at wasn't you. It was your mom. Hello everyone, my name is Daria, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys enjoyed that little performance, that little tale that I wove for you all. I had to dig into the recesses, dig into my past of writing One Direction imagines in middle school. I spent pretty much my entire study hall writing imagines and one-shots for people on Tumblr. So I have a lot that I want to cover in this video, but everything that I'm going to talk about stems from this one book called The Idea of You, published in 2017 by Robin Lee. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard about this book because you have heard about the recent movie adaptation featuring Nicholas Galitzine and Anne Hathaway. The trailer took the internet by storm. I think that Amazon said it was like their most streamed trailer for an original film. And the second that the trailer dropped, I'm pretty sure every single Directioner that ever was, our spidey tingles went off, because yes, you guessed it, this book, this movie is based off of One Direction fan fiction of Harry Styles. I suppose saying that this was fan fiction is not entirely accurate because Robin Lee was inspired by Harry Styles, and Hayes is obviously meant to mimic Harry Styles in all of the very superficial ways, but it's not like a direct fanfic like, let's say, After by Anna Todd, which was written on Wattpad, had Harry as the main character, and it was only when it was published and made into a film that the names were changed. I picked up the book only really knowing a bare bones synopsis of it, which went something like this. It is a Harry Styles fanfiction in which Your Name's mom stole her moment. And honestly, y'all, having finished this book, I desperately wish so badly that I could go back to that point in time when I only knew of that bare bones surface summary of this book. I really do wish that I could go back and delete this book from my brain, but I can't. So instead, I have to exercise this demon in front of this camera and share the absolute fuckery of this book with you all. And only then can I know peace. I have to admit that before even reading this book, I had a feeling that I was not going to be a big fan of it because it was inspired by Harry Styles, but specifically seemed to be focusing on the fact that he, in real life, had a lot of relationships with women who were much older than him. And that was apparently the reason that this author chose Harry Styles to be her inspiration for the main character in her novel, Hayes Campbell. Now, for anyone who is not a part of the One Direction fandom or just really wasn't aware of any pop culture back in like 2011 to 2013 to 14-ish, there were a lot of headlines about Harry Styles and his, quote, womanizing ways. And Back then, this was a bit icky to me, and now that I'm 25 years old looking back on it, it is frankly disgusting. Harry Styles first rose to prominence when he was 16 years old on the X Factor UK, where he was put into the group One Direction. Now, ultimately, they did not win that season of the X Factor, but I think you could still call them winners because they went on to become the biggest band in the world. Like, they were a cultural moment in history, pop culture icons almost immediately with their first single. They were everywhere. You could not escape them. Harry especially, he really became the kind of frontman of the band. He was the one that all the girls had a crush on. He was the one that everyone had something to say about, including tabloids and gossip headlines. I'm pretty sure that there was a new article being published about who Harry was dating every 2 seconds. At 18 years old, Harry Styles was being painted as the ultimate womanizer, playboy, and cougar hunter. And it's that last title that I particularly have qualms with. Harry's so-called preference for older women dates all the way back to when he was 16 or 17 years old on the X Factor, when he developed a very obvious and public crush on a presenter for that show, Caroline Flack. It was very obvious to everyone that Harry had a bit of a crush on Caroline. He was making that fairly obvious, and there were a lot of interviews and such where the boys were even teasing him whenever he was around Caroline.
Harry, which girl would you fancy the most, Harry?
Caroline.
Who said that? Who said that?
Reflecting on their relationship in her memoir, Caroline wrote, "I already knew that he had a crush on me. He's made it pretty obvious, and he said it in magazines and said it to friends. It began to go wrong when he was pictured coming out of my house one morning, and that was that. In the street, people started shouting pedophile at me and pervert." What's particularly disturbing to me is that that quote from Caroline Flack's memoir feeds into this larger narrative surrounding Harry Styles at the time, that he was just this, like, sexual kind of, like, maniac almost. Like, he was pursuing women left and right. He was going after these older women. He was a cougar hunter. Oh, he loves older women, and he's just gonna flirt with everybody, and he wants everybody. That then feeds into this larger narrative that we have surrounding young men, where we see them as purely sexual beings. They have this appetite for sex that is insatiable, and even when they're children. Harry Styles was a child. He was 17 years old, 18 years old, and he was being written about like this. That is profoundly disturbing. And let's say that, yes, Harry was this ultimate flirt. In fact, let's take Harry out of it. A 17-year-old boy, any 17-year-old boy, he is this horrible flirt, and he is flirting with all these older women. He is, being very aggressive when flirting with them. He's pursuing them, all these things. I do not care. It is your job as the adult to shut that shit down.
Hi, it's me, editing Daria here, because I was a little bit hesitant about keeping in this Caroline Flack portion of the video, but I feel like it was too important not to include, so I'm coming here to sort of add more context. For anyone who doesn't know, Caroline Flack passed away. She unalived herself about 4 years ago, and that is obviously like a very tragic thing. I know that she struggled with her mental health. I did not keep up with her past my One Direction days, so I didn't really know any of this, but she did struggle with her mental health pretty severely throughout her entire life, and a lot of people sort of, when they speak about her death and the reasons for it, there's this constant, topic being brought up of the way that she was harassed and bullied and sort of dragged through the coals by, tabloids and media, gossip sites, just regular people online on Twitter. And she's sort of become, since her passing, this symbol of, being kind. I think the campaign in her name is Choose Kindness. We can hold two things true at once. We can acknowledge that Caroline's passing was a tragedy, that she did not deserve a lot of the misogyny and just outright vicious attacks. People were attacking her for her looks, and I don't agree with that. However, we can also acknowledge that her being in a relationship with a teenage boy when she was 31 is deeply inappropriate and predatory. And I know people will come to me and be like, well, 16 is the legal age of consent in the UK. Personally, I think the second that you need to bring up legal ages and ages of consent, you've lost the argument, because that's why do you need to bring that up? And I also feel like there's a difference between legality and morality. And for me, it is just so deeply immoral to be a fully grown adult and engage in any kind of sexual romantic relationship with a teenager. That's not right. It will never be right. Caroline Flack didn't deserve to be attacked for her appearance. People attacked her for her weight, all of that. However, she did deserve to be called out and criticized for her relationship with Harry Styles.
Another one of Harry's public relationships that I wanted to bring up was his very short-lived relationship with Taylor Swift. And at the time, this was, oh my god, I remember the day that these pictures of them in the park dropped. It was Armageddon. And the amount of hate for Taylor at the time was insane. I'm not gonna deny that there were a lot of people who just hated her because she was dating their favorite pop star. And to be completely upfront, I was one of them. I couldn't stand that she had my man. I'm not gonna lie, like my 13-year-old self was pissed the fuck off. My maladaptive, delulu fucking self was angry. Now, did I say anything badly about her? No, I kept that shit to myself. However, looking back on it, I'm mad at myself for not being angry about the right thing. Because at the time, I didn't know. And actually, I even brought this up to some of my friends. They didn't know that Harry Styles was 18 and Taylor Swift was 22 years old when they started having their little dalliance. I wish that I'd been pissed off at her for being a 22-year-old woman dating a teenager. Because what business do you have dating him? What do you have in common? Okay, I know some people are going to be like, well, it's only a 4-year age difference. That's really not that bad. Okay, let's use some common sense here, shall we? If you're 25 dating a 29-year-old, there's nothing wrong with that. If you are 22 dating a teenager, someone who literally just got out of high school. I mean, Harry Styles didn't go to high school, but you know what I'm saying. What do you have in common? Yes, it's legal, but once again, that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about legality. We're talking about the ethics. We're talking about the morality. That shit is weird. And also, I'm pretty sure that same year Taylor Swift went on to date another 18-year-old boy, Connor Kennedy. So, returning now to Robin Lee, the author of The Idea of You, there's something a little bit strange about her looking at that history of a young Harry Styles being sexualized by tabloids and engaging in, frankly, predatory relationships. And thought, you know what? Yes. Yes, that will be the inspiration for my next big romance novel. So with that setup in mind, I think you can probably guess what The Idea of You is going to be like. And now, a quick summary of The Idea of You 2017 by Robin Lee. So Len says, I could be your mother. Hayes replies, but you're not, so let's fuck. This book opens up on our main character, Solène, who is a 39-year-old recent divorcee, and she's taking her 12-year-old daughter, Isabel, to a August Moon concert. August Moon is the One Direction equivalent in this story. They've got backstage passes, VIP, they're going to meet the band ahead of time, and whilst they're at this meet and greet, that is when Solène runs into Hayes Campbell, aka Harry Styles. They have a bit of a back and forth, a bit of a flirt, but Solène is kind of wary, at least for now, because he is 20 years old. And there's one thing that I should establish right away at the beginning so we can get it out of the way, and that is the fact that this woman is French. Okay? I cannot tell you how many paragraphs and pages this book dedicated to telling you how French this woman is. She is the Frenchiest French woman to ever be French. Okay? This book was just so obsessed with the fact that Solène was French that I figured that it had to be of some importance. And turns out that I was right, because during a blog interview in 2017 with Robin Lee, she said the following. I think the French have always been more tolerant and had more progressive ideas about sex and sexuality than we have here in the US. The French are much more comfortable with sex and viewing themselves as sexual beings. They are more comfortable with nudity and sexuality in their media. The age gap between President Macron and his wife is 25 years. So the fact that we are even having this conversation is sad. And while the Macrons certainly raised eyebrows in France, I think a similar older woman, younger man political coupling would be positively scandalous in the US. So Robin Lee brings up the first couple of France, the Macrons, and this is important. The way she talks about them is very telling for how she thinks and how this novel played out. Because in case you didn't know, President Macron met his current wife when he was 15 years old and she was his teacher in school. If that is the relationship that Robin Lee is defending and using as her benchmark and standard, you can probably imagine where this book is going to go.
There are also a lot of moments in this book where Solenne's like French heritage will be used as almost an excuse or synonymous with her like predatory behavior, as if somehow like it's built into her DNA. It's very strange, and frankly, like if I were French, it would piss me off.
After the August Moon concert, Hayes invites Selene, Isabel, and all of Isabel's friends backstage, and he continues to flirt with Selene, and one day he calls her up at the art gallery that she runs and asks her out for lunch. And throughout this entire lunch, Selene is constantly battling between her extreme attraction to Hayes and also the fact that she is 20 years older than him, just about. And the thing that really let me know just how downhill this novel was gonna go was the fact that during this lunch, Hayes ends up telling Selene that he lost his virginity at 14 to one of the band members' 19-year-old sister. Let me repeat that. 14, a 14-year-old boy, and a 19-year-old woman. What the fuck? And what's even crazier than that is that he talks about how much he was begging for it. He wanted it. He wanted to sleep with her, and he was happy that she did. And Selene doesn't sit back and be like, call the police. FBI, yeah, we have a problem. Put this girl in jail. No, she doesn't really, she doesn't react to it. We just pass on by this like it's normal fucking lunch conversation. Literally, a crime was just admitted to. And we're just gonna continue eating our little garden salad. What the fuck? And what's even crazier is this little anecdote is meant to set up the fact of Hayes's preference for older women, which is insane. You're a victim, sir. You're a victim. And in case you want to make this experience of reading this book or hearing me summarizing it even worse for yourself, do what I did. And always keep in the back of your mind that this character is based on Harry Styles. A real person. A real boy who was in relationships with women who were so much older than him in the public eye, who was being exploited and victimized and sexualized by the media constantly. And this is the book that this woman wrote based on that. Anyway, after this, there's like a bunch of scenes where Hayes and Selene are like meeting up at hotels and in between fittings, and you know, there's like the development of their sexual relationship, which I don't care about. Just know that there's a lot of that going on throughout this book. I'm not going to describe any of it because I don't give a fuck and I think it's weird, but yeah, there's that. And the thing about this book is that it is so obsessed with their age gap. It is always being brought up. Selene is constantly thinking about how he's barely out of his teen years. She calls him a boy constantly. She's constantly being like, oh my god, look at his hands. They're so like strong and he's so young and look at his soft skin. Oh my god, he like was just a teenager last year. What am I doing? What am I doing? But oh my god, I want to like fuck him so bad. Oh my god. And she even brings up the fact that she's old enough to be his mother during sex, and she's like obsessed with his like youth and stamina. Like, girl, you're a freak. Get away from him. Get another job. I mean, she has a job. Get another one. Because obviously you have too much fucking time on your hands. What are you doing? What are you doing? Anyway, after a bunch of like sex marathons and, you know, jetting off to different places together, Selene basically is hearing a lot of like gossip and chatter that she is just one in a long line of older women that Hayes has slept with, is sleeping with. And so she confronts him being like, hey, are you seeing other people? And he basically confirms yes. And then she's kind of like weirded out by that, and then weirded out at herself for being weirded out, because she's like, oh my god, I think I might be falling for him. And my question is, why? Because you have nothing in common. Why would you? He's a 20-year-old boy band member. What would you have in common, girl? What? Literally nothing. Like, the only thing they have in common is that they're attracted to each other. That's it. This entire book, like, it's just sex. That is literally it. What do you have to fall in love with? What is there between you besides lust and a weird obsession with each other's age? That's it. He's got mommy issues. You've got a lot of other issues that I can't go see a therapist, girl. Like, and that's it. That's all that you guys are to each other. All this woman does constantly in her head is flip-flop between being super grossed out that he's so young and then super turned on by it. So, weirdo. And beyond being a weirdo, this woman is just low-key pathetic. Because she, every time he is like within like 20 feet of another woman, especially a younger woman, she freaks the fuck out. Like, I think he was like talking to some model at one point and she loses it. And my thing is, if you're gonna be like that, do not date a boy band member in his 20s. Don't do it. If you're gonna be this jealous and this fucking, like, uptight about this shit, don't do it. She just constantly needs reassurance and needs him to put down these other women in order to build up her own confidence. You are 39 years old. Can you get a grip? And here's one thing I want to say and get out of the way before we continue. This book is constantly bringing up the fact that Solène, being a divorced woman, going into her 40s, she is sort of, you know, invisible to everybody. She is not taken seriously by people in her profession. She runs an art gallery, and her partner tend to feature a lot of women of color, marginalized folks, and they are like one of the only like women-run galleries in LA. Her husband left her for like a woman about 10 years younger than him. Now they're getting married and having a baby. She just feels, it's a valid feeling to feel like as a woman approaching 40, she is basically being ignored and erased by a society that tells her that you just don't have a function. You are no longer desirable. You're supposed to be a mom and a wife, and that's all you're good for. And that is not, that's a real thing, okay? That is an actual thing that really does happen that is worth exploring in a novel. The author said in a 2020 interview with Vogue that this was supposed to be a story about a woman approaching 40, reclaiming her sexuality and rediscovering herself, just at the point that society traditionally writes these women off. I have absolutely no problem with you writing a sexy romance novel where a woman is reclaiming her sexuality, rediscovering it at a moment where society traditionally tells women that, you know, just shut up and sit in the corner and be quiet. No problem with that. However, I do have a problem when you are essentially saying that the way for a woman to do that, to reclaim her sexuality, is to go out and fuck some kid 20 years younger than her who's barely out of his teen years. That's how she's going to reclaim her sexuality. That's how she's going to, you know, get back and be empowered. Are you sure about that? You're sure that's the answer you want to go with? Okay. Honestly, I was a little bit worried about this coming off as if I'm like insulting, you know, middle-aged women in their 40s, and I don't want it to come off like that. But frankly, I think that this is insulting. I think it's insulting to say that the answer to rediscovering yourself and empowering yourself is to engage in an extremely predatory relationship with some kid. He's a kid. I'm sorry, he's a kid. I find that insulting. That's fucked up. You're weird. You're weird for that. And this is my question. I'm going to ask a very valid question, okay? Why does your sexual liberation require the exploitation of someone else? I'm asking that question twofold. Because on the one hand, I'm talking to Solène, the character. Why is it that your sexual liberation is tied up in fucking some 20-year-old kid? And you're obsessed with the age gap. That's the thing. You're not falling in love with this guy. You just want to have sex with someone who's young. I also have to ask that question of the author herself. Because you are writing this extremely sexual, weird, like, age gap focused story based on a real person. Okay, you're writing this about, I think this was published in like 2017. I don't know when she wrote it, but I know Harry Styles was probably in his 20s. Have you ever looked at all these men in this patriarchal capitalistic society and just been fed up with the way that they persecute us? You know what you should do, girl boss? You should go ahead and become just like them. Okay, all of these men who engage in these predatory behaviors, who go and date these women who are barely out of their teen years, go do that yourself. Why not? Go on, girl boss. Go feminism. That's feminism. Slay. Slay queen. And you know what's so crazy? I saw a lot of people defending this book. And not even defending this book, like defending real life predatory relationships with this very argument. They say this. They say, well, the men do it, so why can't we? Why are you hating on a woman when men do this all the time and they get away with it? You know, men are constantly dating women so much younger than them who are like barely out of their teen years. Like, why aren't you complaining to them? I need you to listen to yourself. Like, I need you to really, like, listen. Don't just hear, listen. and realize how fucking insane you sound. Literally, your answer is to just become the oppressor, to become the subjugator and the exploiter. That's the answer? It just reeks, man. Like, it reeks. Like, you're such a weirdo for that. Anyway, tangent over. Back to the summary of the novel. So eventually, Solenne's daughter, Isabel, ends up finding out about their relationship. Solenne is, like, agonizing over how she's gonna tell her, like, oh, hey, I'm fucking your teen idol. Sorry about it. And eventually, Isabel finds out on her own because she sees Hayes and her mom making out in a car outside of their house. And this scene, if I didn't hate this bitch before, I despised her after this. I don't think I've ever been so angry with a fictional character before. Every single thing that her daughter says to her in this argument is absolutely justified. I was sitting there and I was listening to this audiobook in public, and I started, like, low-key cheering to myself. Like, I couldn't, like, I was ecstatic. If there's one character in this book that I will defend, that I stan, it is her 12-year-old daughter, Isabel. I love that girl. I just felt so bad for her. Like, this is just the start of it. This girl is gonna need so much fucking therapy after the events of this book. It's insane. It's insane. And it's particularly insane, you'll come to see later on in the novel, because Solenne constantly talks about how she wants to protect Isabel, how she'll do anything for Isabel. And yet she is hurting her daughter and will continue to allow her daughter to be hurt because of a predatory fucking relationship. Oh, and then the cherry on top is that after this huge argument, Isabel just, like, completely ignores her mom. She doesn't want to talk to her, doesn't want to see her. She's spending a lot of time at her dad's house. So then Solenne invites over Hayes to talk to Isabel, basically manipulating Isabel into forgiving her and being nice to her. Because when Hayes tells her, like, oh, I really like your mom, and please be nice to her, okay? I want to make sure that you're nice to her. You bring in this girl's idol to convince her to be nice to you and forgive you. Fuck you. What the fuck is wrong with you? You're just so... This woman is awful. This woman is a horrible person. She's a horrible person. Oh, and then the parenting gets even worse because Isabel and a bunch of her friends show up at this hotel or something where the boys are going to be performing, and Solenne allows one of the band members, who is 22 years old, to take Isabel and her preteen friends out to the mall on their own. And I know it's the middle of the day, you know, whatever, but I don't care. You're allowing this grown man to take your daughter, your underage daughter, and her underage friends out. I literally can't finish my sentence because it's fucking baffling to me. Is that not child endangerment? Not just your own child, other people's children. Other people's children! And you're letting this stranger take them! Are you insane? I'm sorry. This mic is actually not real. Like, I just thought that I looked professional and all the other video essay and commentators do this, so I thought that I would buy a fake mini mic. But, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I literally, oh my god, we're only halfway through the book and I told you I had to exercise a demon. She finds out that apparently Hayes convinced his bandmate to take all the girls away to the mall so that he and Solenne could have sex. And what do you think Solenne's response to that is? Does she say, what the fuck is wrong with you? I am not letting my daughter and her 12-year-old, 13-year-old friends out of my sight. Why the fuck would you do that so we could have sex? No, she laughs. She says, ha ha ha, and then they have sex. I really don't know if I can continue with this. Like, it's one of those things where you're so angry that you can't speak. And what baffles me, what really gets to me is that this book has, like, nearly a 4.0 rating on Goodreads. I genuinely don't think that I read the same book as these other people. Like, usually I'm fairly, like, okay, like, even if I don't like a book, even the after books, I was like, okay, you know, it's not my cup of tea, but I could see how people read it. It's escapism, it's a fantasy, it's fiction, blah, blah, blah. I don't get this. I really sincerely don't get it. Frankly, I don't want to get it. And to add to the child neglect and endangerment that this woman engages in, later on, she's at the hotel with Hayes, and she hears this girl crying in the hallway, knocking on another band member's door. So she goes out there, and the girl looks really young, and she finds out that she's actually 16 years old. And something happened to her that she slept with We don't know exactly what happened, but she did something with one of the band members. She's trying to get into their room. They're not letting her in. Her friend also ditched her to go off with one of the drummers, you know, their backup band. She's also underage. Selene goes up to Hayes and is like, we need to call the police. We need to get her a cab. And Hayes is like, I can't be involved with this. Like, she's underage. I could get in trouble, blah, blah, blah. I'm not even gonna fucking touch that. And it's only because of this incident where she sees this girl who's obviously underage, she's been traumatized, like, this is so not okay. It's only then that Selene thinks, oh my god, I can't believe that I allowed my daughter to be alone with one of these band members, and I allowed him to, like, take her even out to the mall when I was not, you know, supervising her. Someone call CPS. I'm so serious. I'm so dead serious. And then later on, she approaches the two members of the band and she's like, listen, I don't know what happened, but you guys could get in serious trouble. She scolds them like she's their nanny or their mommy. Maybe that's more apt. And they're just like, oh my god, like we didn't know that she was like 16. Like we thought that she was 18. She said she was from UCLA, like blah, blah. Selene literally is like, you guys need to be careful because you could get in trouble. Not coming at them being like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Even if she wasn't underage, why was she so traumatized by what happened? What did you do to her? What's wrong with you? I don't know why I'm doing this. You guys know it's fake now. I can't, I'm sorry. This is so insane. This is so insane. I feel like I'm living in the fucking Twilight Zone. Okay, so the fuckery continues yet again because Selene is at some party or something, some event, and the girl, her name's Penelope, who took Hayes' virginity, the 19-year-old, the criminal, let's just call her what it is, okay, a criminal. The criminal shows up. Instead of having the normal reaction wherein she's like, what the fuck? Like, get away from me. I don't want to talk to you. You're a groomer. You're a predator. You're a weirdo. You should be in jail. Get the fuck away from me. No, she doesn't think that. Instead, she looks at this girl, Penelope, and thinks, oh, so this is the girl who is like the prototype for Hayes' type of woman. This is my competition. She gets jealous. She gets upset because she thinks that Hayes still likes this woman. And she's upset because, you know, this was like his first love, the woman who established his type. This is when I knew this woman is fucked in the head. Like, I already had a sneaking suspicion. It was when she had this reaction to seeing this criminal in front of her that I was like, you're sick. But then again, why would she have another reaction? Because she's no better. She's no better, okay? Birds of a feather, you know, predator recognizes predator. So not long after this, their relationship ends up going public because pictures of them engaging in pleasurable activities on a boat gets leaked to the press. And now everybody is like calling into her art gallery, sending her death threats, spray painting the walls of the art gallery. They're sending her like hate mail and shit. There's also this one scene that establishes just how much of a creep this woman is and establishes that she truly does not give a fuck about Hayes. She only likes him because he's young. That's it. That's all she sees in him. And the scene occurs when he's like sleeping naked in the bed and she's like sketching him and she's musing on how, you know, tight and beautiful and soft his skin is and, you know, his body and how amazing it is. And she starts thinking, you know, one day he's going to start losing his hair and he's going to grow like bigger and fatter and he's not going to be the Hayes that I fell in love with. Are you well? Like, genuinely, I'm asking, are you well? This literally sounds like the beginning of an episode of, like, Dateline or something. Like, she has the makings of a repeat offender. I'm sorry. Oh, and then you know what's even crazier? Is that while they're having sex, like, literally in the middle of the act, Hayes leans down and whispers to her, does it feel like you're my mom right now? There's another running storyline and running thread throughout this novel in which Hayes' bandmate Oliver is sort of constantly like making weird advances towards Selene. Oliver is also the brother of Penelope, the girl that Hayes, they didn't have sex. She took advantage of him. Yeah, so Oliver is constantly like making passes at Selene, and it all kind of comes to a head when Oliver says something to Selene that reveals that he knows that Hayes and Penelope had sex. I hate saying that because she took advantage of him, you know. Ugh, disgusting. Anyway. And Selene goes and tells Hayes, like, okay, like Oliver knows. And basically, before a performance that they're about to have, Oliver and Hayes get into a fight. And Hayes ends up saying something basically insinuating that Oliver wished that he could have been in Penelope's situation. And Oliver punches the lights out of Hayes, like breaks his nose. Iconic. And later on, when Selene and Hayes talk, there is this kind of insinuation that Oliver may have had feelings for Hayes, or maybe still does. Potentially something happened between the two of them. We don't know. And any directioner knows exactly where this storyline is pulled from. The Larry Stylinson tease, y'all. Oh my god. I did not think that she was gonna fit this reference in, but she damn well did it. Eventually, everything that she's been going through kind of compounds for Selene. The harassment, the stalking, the hate mail, the death threats, the threats to her, like, workplace, and, you know, the fact that she feels like her art gallery partner and friend just, like, doesn't want her around. They end up losing a client over all of this. Like, it just all becomes too much for her. The straw that breaks the camel's back is when she's picking up Isabel from school, and Isabel reveals to her that she has been constantly getting bullied at her school by other girls there. They ask her to ask her mom what sex with Hayes is like, and this one boy that she had a crush on came up to her and said, oh, like, tell your mom that I'm about to turn 18. And Isabel just breaks down, and oh my god, this broke my fucking heart. And once again, this girl is gonna need so much fucking therapy. She basically tells her mom, I didn't want to tell you about this because you deserve to be happy with Hayes, and I was trying to be strong, and I didn't want you to have to break up with him for me, so I didn't tell you about it. What irks me so bad is that throughout the entire book, Selene is constantly talking about how she loves her daughter. She'll do anything for her daughter. She tells Hayes multiple fucking times, if this ever gets to the point that I'm going to be hurting my daughter, it's done. What did you think was happening? The second that your daughter had the reaction that she did to finding out that you and Hayes were together, it should have been over. This angers me so bad, the adultification of this girl. Literally having to worry about her mom's feelings. She is 13. 13 years old. Finally, Selene does the one decent thing she's probably ever done in her life. And that is break it off with Hayes. And there's this period of time where they're going like back and forth. He's constantly calling her. You know, she's trying to ignore him. And eventually he shows up one night in tears at her house, and they end up having sex. And he then reveals to her that he apparently, before coming there, quit the band. And she kind of freaks out. She's like, no, you're not quitting the band for me. That's not happening because this is your calling. This is what you love. Eventually you're going to forget about me. You're going to love other people. And even if you did quit the band for me, eventually you would come to resent me. And I can't have that. So she kicks him out. And the book finally ends with Selene sort of talking about how he's still calling her, he's still texting her, but eventually those calls and texts peter out until eventually he stops communicating with her altogether. And that's the end of the book. Halla frickin' Lula. Halla frickin' Lula. I can't even talk, this book has me so fucked up. You know what's so funny? I was looking at some of the, reviews on Goodreads for this book, and so many people were complaining about this ending, being like, oh, I would have rated this book higher if it had had a happier ending. This is a happy ending. This is a very happy ending. And in fact, I think that the ending is the only thing good about this book. The only thing the author ever did right in this book was end her book that way. Why in the what is their relationship? Literally nothing. Like I said, it's a boy with severe mommy issues and a woman who is borderline predatory. That's it. And they have sex. That's it. That's it to their relationship. And in the course of this relationship, she destroys her daughter's mental health and her own. Beyond the fact that this book is just like so gross in so many different ways, like the content, the plot is fucking weird. I also just want to talk about how like the concept of these like fan fictions about real people being published is also really weird. It becomes increasingly uncomfortable when you think about Robin Lee writing this book and making Hayes 20 years old. So was she basing Hayes off of a 20-year-old Harry Styles? Because that's very weird. I can't imagine being Harry and having these women publish these sexualized stories about you. I mean, he's never made any comments about it, not that I've read. And I think like maybe that's part of the reason people feel like they can get away with it, because he doesn't really say a lot at all, honestly, about himself or how he feels about things. But like, I can't imagine it feels good. He's lived the better part of his whole life being sexualized in the media by people. Like, I can't imagine what that does to you. Like, it must really fuck with your sense of self. We also have people like Anna Todd, who wrote the After series, a Harry Styles fan fiction, when she was 23 years old, about an 18, 19-year-old Harry Styles. Let me repeat that. She was writing sexual, erotic fan fiction about a teenage boy when she was 23. And then that shit got published and went on to be bestsellers. Then that shit got made into a movie franchise. Can you imagine how that would feel if that was you? I would feel so... It feels like a violation. There's something so weird about these older women writing about a teenage Harry Styles and then going on to sell that shit, make a career off that shit, and now they're getting movies made about that shit. That's so weird. Now that I've brought it up, let's go ahead and talk about the movie adaptation of The Idea of You. I believe that they have made a few changes to the source material. For one, they have aged up Hayes to 25, which to me is honestly a massive improvement from 20. I just feel like there's a world of difference between being 20 years old and being 25. So I'm happy about that. Also, you've casted Nicholas Galitzine and Hannah Hathaway, who themselves, I believe, only have a 12-year age difference. So also, he doesn't really look that much younger than Anne Hathaway, you know, not by much, because he isn't. If we were to actually cast this movie accurately to the book, you would have to get someone like Louis Partridge. Like, imagine Louis Partridge in this movie. I need you to imagine that, and now you know how gross this fucking book is. I believe that they have also aged up the daughter Isabel, because in an interview, Anne Hathaway mentioned that her character had her daughter when she was very young, and from what I've seen in the trailer, the daughter does not look 12. I think that is also an improvement, because Isabel being so young, so impressionable in the book just made what she was put through so much worse, in my opinion. It also seemed from the trailer that this was much more of a lighthearted rom-com kind of deal, rather than, I don't know, what would you call this book? Weird, predatory erotica drama? I don't know. Whatever the fuck this book was. It seems to be a lot better than that. Unfortunately, I think that I've seen too much. I have seen Behind the Veil, and I think that I'm not going to be able to enjoy this movie, because knowing its origin, knowing, you know, the fact that the woman who wrote this book was basically profiting off of sexualizing Harry Styles and, like, basically using inspiration of the inappropriate age gap relationships that he was actually in real life, using that as your inspiration, like, it gives me such a massive ick that, unfortunately, I think it is gonna, like, dampen my enjoyment of the film. So, that is it for me today, you guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I know that I enjoyed making it, even though I was pissed the fuck off and raging. Sometimes you need to just rage in front of a camera and get that shit out of you, you know? And even if this video never sees the light of day, I'm glad that I, you know, spoke my piece and I never have to talk about it ever again. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Go ahead and let me know. I don't know. Let me know what you thought about this. Let me know if you've read the book, if you are a directioner like me. What was your experience watching the exploitation of Harry Styles in real time? What was that like for you? If you guys want to find me or follow me anywhere else, all of my links will be down below, along with a link to my Patreon, which you can join for $4 a month. You'll see a lot more of me raging and ranting and raving. So if you enjoyed that in this video, go on and check that out as well. I love you all so very dearly and look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye!